All right, big news out of Albany. Today, the Senate approving legislation to legalize medicinal marijuana. Senate voting 49-10 in favor of legalizing the drug to alleviate pain and other symptoms experienced by patients who are severely ill. The move will make New York the 23rd state to legalize the drug. However, it will not be available for at least 18 months. This thing took a while, didn't it, to get done?
Well, it did. And, you know, your lead didn't mention the Assembly. The fact is the Assembly had passed multiple bills for medicinal marijuana over a period of time. This was the final compromise with the Senate and the governor that we did in the Assembly last night, and they did this morning.
What's the hang up with the governor about that? Was he didn't want it smoking it, right?
Smoking. Yeah. Oh, I think there were two things. One was smoking. He was worried that, he called it a pathway. That seems a little outdated in my opinion. But that being said, you know, he was worried about the widespread use that wasn't strictly medicinal. Second place, there are states like California where it really hasn't been the most successful health-related experiment because people are using it recreationally. And I think he wanted to avoid that. He put his foot down about it, and we did come up with a compromise. And it's not a perfect compromise, but it is a definite step in the right direction.
And California has fallen into the ocean and is no longer the burgeoning economy it once. I mean, I understand that it's not strictly being used for medical purposes in California, but is the outcome, the net result, really so horrible that that's not a place where a state like New York or New Jersey or Connecticut can go? I'm not saying with you.
I agree with you. We have voted every time for a bill that allows smoking, because there are people who say, you know, who are we legislators to decide what's the right way? Why don't you work it out with your doctor and let the doctor and the patient decide the most appropriate way to get it into your system?
It's a start, and you know, New York should not have been the 23rd state in the country to legalize medical marijuana.
In a lot of ways, New York, everybody assumes, oh, it's the bluest state. You look for a bunch of stuff, like ultimate fighting. You know what I mean? It's like New York's not the last, but almost.
This is like this feels to me like the least amount that the state could do and qualify as having legalized medical marijuana.
Legalized marijuana overall? Forget about just for medicinal. Do you think we see it in the next 10 years?
I think we'll see a reduction, continued effort to reduce penalties for small amounts that do not involve making money off.
But not like Colorado and Washington State where you make money on it.
I don't see it with this governor. I think he's really put a marker down about it.
I don't see it, Richard. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see it.
We would have said the same thing about gay marriage 10 years ago.
Yeah, but we're talking about New York, and we're talking about a governor in this case that has higher ambition. He's in a re-election effort, as you well know, and he wants to be able to run for the White House. How realistic that is, we'll see.
Well, I just butt in? Regardless of his higher ambitions, I think he has been clear about this. He did not want smoking in it. He stuck to his guns, and you know they worked around him to come up with a compromise. But we should not leave out that for parents, particularly who have kids that need this, it will be available. And we have taken a real step forward, and there's tremendous support in the legislature for it, even though it's not perfect.
I want to get to on the education front, where teachers are breathing a big sigh of relief tonight. Albany lawmakers passing Governor Cuomo's proposal that prevents teachers from being fired due to poor student test scores under the Common Core standards. Teachers who are deemed quote-unquote ineffective will not be at risk of losing their jobs based solely on assessment test scores. The change, it kicks in during the next school year. At the end of the day, you got people at home saying, you're giving a pass to lousy teachers. I get that this shouldn't be the only standard, but is it still too hard to fire a crummy teacher?
Well, I think let's talk about the details. This simply says that you are already graded. That's required by federal law. Teachers are being graded. One component was the test score. We're saying for 2 years, if the teacher does poorly on that, you'll be using other criterion. You can get rid of, and you should be able to get rid of, a lousy teacher. No one should justify. And that doesn't have to do with the APPR, what we're talking about. That has to do with a lot of other factors. It's way too hard to get rid of a lousy teacher, and we should have accountability. On the other hand, parents complain bitterly about teachers teaching to the test, and if they're only going to be determined whether they're successful if the kids in the class do well in the test, then there's a lot of teachers who are good who are going to be lost.
Quick prediction. I saw a poll that's got Charlie Rangel up double digits, 12, 13 points. At the end of the day, does he get through the primary?
At the end of the day, Rangel wins this thing.
You guys both agree with him?
Maybe by the same margin he did
right,
2 years ago.
By less than 1,000 votes. Right.
I'm not convinced that he will.
All right.
And you might be right.
Yeah.
And the most important subject, we ran out of time, no more tattoos or piercings for pets. Whichever person was doing this before they needed to put a law in the books, you have major issues. Okay, thank you guys very much. Okay, coming up next, a look at the Freedom Summer of 1964. Director Stanley Nelson speaks to RFL about his new PBS documentary. It's a fascinating look about the movement that helped change America.